Happy days. Thank you very much. Right, so we'll kick off then with some intros. So because we've only got one microphone, I guess I'll start. So I'm Chris. I am head of engineering at Freeman Ratton, which is, for those of you who are possibly slightly younger in the audience, is historically a catalogue order company, but is now purely e-commerce based over in Bradford. And I've been helping 4IT with these events for far longer than I care to remember. So I'll pass us down the line.
Hi, everyone. So I'm Raj Fowler. I'm the engineering director at Skipton Building Society. And if you don't know what we do, we help people own a home and help make money work harder. So we're in the process of revolutionizing how that's done in the marketplace. So looking forward to questions, I think.
Hi, everyone. So I'm Laura Harris. I'm product manager over at Persimmon Homes, UK national house builder. And we are currently in the midst of a big transformation, both from a web perspective and then also from our full CRM suite that we're redoing. So yeah, looking forward to questions.
Hi, I'm Philippa Rickard. I am the Global Head of Technology Delivery at Freshfields, and that is a law firm, not a supermarket. So for those who are unaware, we are a massive firm, and we are part of the Magic Circle, if you've ever heard Magic Circle, which is the law firm circle. So yeah, pretty big and high expectations from us all.
Hiya, I'm Louis Fagan. I'm the head of digital product here at II. I'll show you where the fire exit is. If it's a fire. For those of you that don't know what II is, we're a self-investment platform offering ISAs, SIPs, GIAs, pensions. That's my sales pitch. If you're not a member of II, speak to me afterwards. But happy to answer any questions today. That is a speaker.
Yeah,
But apparently it's not on because of the echo. Right, okay, this is not going to get tedious at all. Let's crack on. So before we start asking the questions, it's really useful for the panel to get a feeling for where everybody in the audience is up to at the moment, so we get a feel for what to kind of talk about and how much detail to go into, and then a feel for where the panel are with their challenges at the moment, and then we'll go into the more specific questions. So for the audience, and you don't have to take part of this at home because quite honestly I can't see the screen, quick show of hands of the people that are working in an organisation that is somewhere on the journey towards full sort of product working, who's got product teams or on the way there. Cool. Right, yeah, shall we swap? I won't ask the second half of that question then because it seems academic. In terms of the individual experience in the room, how many people have sort of Prince 2 EPSME type qualification? Well, start with Prince 2. Who's got Prince 2? And then who's got more of the agile certs, so your PSM and CSM and stuff like that? Okay, cool. And then who uses the term Wagile in their organisation? I wasn't expecting that after the first answer. Okay, I think that levels the playing field a little bit, so we can move on from there. So I'm going to pass down the line to each of the panel in turn. If you could please let me know what the term product means in your organization. So do you do it by feature? Do you do it by channel? What that actually looks like? What is a product to you in your organization? And then at a high level, what your split between product and project looks like.
Okay, so product for us, so our business model is fairly simple. We help people with owning a home through mortgages and through savings, ISAs, and all of that sort of stuff. So for us, a product is a journey or an experience that our members go through, either before they become members or when they become members, to secure one of those products to help them with one of their outcomes. In terms of product and project split, I would say 80–90% product.
So in terms of product at Persimmon, we are new to product. So I've come from a product background, which is why they've brought me in. But yeah, this is the first experience for them of going into that product-led model. And so we are still quite immature in our setup and in terms of what the business understand as a whole as what product is, but we are going in the right direction, hopefully. And then, sorry, what was the last part of that? Oh, our split. Yes. So at the moment, our split is probably about 5% product and 95% projects.
Hi. So for us, product really means, well, I'll explain a little bit more. So we have a product owner that sits across our finance products, our HR products, our marketing products, and so on and so forth. So we have a single product owner that feeds and is a conduit into those business services departments. But from an actual product team perspective and squads and Scrum delivery, we have products such as Salesforce, Workday, our document management system I manage. So they are our key products where we've been running product teams probably for about 2 to 3 years. We are growing those out and we're starting to build out more product teams, but we are very much on the, we don't develop, we do a lot of integrations. So a lot of our products are about customizations, add-ons, things like that. So we're not a development focus from that perspective. And from we are very project. We are very, very investment portfolios, budgets every year, waterfall delivery, with trying to bring in some ceremonies from agile perspectives. But yeah, so I was split-wise, I would say 25 to 75, I would suggest. Growing hopefully more into the product world. That's one of our goals.
Cool. At II, so our digital products, our product suite is obviously our stocks and shares, ISAs, GIAs, SIPs, as our digital products, but the product space at II is spread across our digital space, so across our secure website, our public website, our mobile app. In terms of product at II, we're probably a 70% product split and a 30% project, but we do refer to Agile quite a lot.
Need some lift music for that bit. Okay, so we're going to go into more general questions now. You don't all need to answer. We won't pass the mic down. If you've got something to contribute, you want to go first, put your hand up, we'll chuck you the mic. So I guess one of the questions is kind of regardless of where you are with your split between product and project at the moment, as a new business case or requirement or product, or well, I won't use the word product, thing that comes in, what goes through your mind as to which approach you would take, be that a project or a product? What's important to you to decide which one of those two streams it goes down? Passing it in that direction, it doesn't need to be your own.
So in the last 4 years at II, we've scaled massively within the product and the project space. So we've grown from 3 or 4 delivery squads that were very platform based, contracting out third parties to develop our website, mobile app. We brought that in-house and we've scaled significantly to about 19, 20 squads across the digital space with a project team sat alongside us as one of our 4 pillars. So project, product, UX and development. Within that, we've had significant challenges within the governance space and how we direct delivery, whether that's small, medium or large scale delivery, down the appropriate pipeline and forming the appropriate governance around those deliverable pieces. We've put a number of key gates in place. So when an idea or project or something is thought of, they scale in through a governance committee that then directs it down, whether it's BAU or medium to smaller level feature delivery that can go directly into the relevant squad that looks after that project, looks after that area of our business, or whether it's a large piece of work that fits certain criteria, like it covers several of our squads, it's going to cover front and back end development or systems, and then that's directed down and given the appropriate resource to deliver it as a project. So project manager, extra resource from other areas of the business, so whether that be operations, customer service, our transfers teams, specialist knowledge that might be needed to support the squad deliveries.
So we're slightly different because we are new to product and we've just started kind of with, so we've got a web product team and then we've got a Salesforce product team. So we've just been mapping out what this looks like because we're about to go live with all these new products. And so the way that we're going to be doing this to begin with, and I'm sure it will evolve over time, is to look at actually put these requests coming into the product teams first, and us looking at actually what is the effort for these requests that are coming in, and then making a decision from there around actually is this too big in terms of the resource we've got, and sending it through. We've got demand management within our PMO. And so it'll go through there if we feel it's too big for us to handle internally within our product teams.
I suppose for two of you who are working under financial regulation, does that come into the mix at all as to your decision-making process at that point?
Yeah.
Yeah, it comes into the mix, and I suppose that's where Agile comes in for us. So obviously, within a highly regulated organisation, you have a lot of different deliverables that are time dependent, and so we'll have regulation that comes in. We have to implement X, Y, and Z by said date,
And so then we have to combine some of the agile ways of working with actually the old waterfall methodology. And we've come up with, and we'll probably touch on it later when we've got some other questions, because we've seen the pre-questions. We came up with our own framework that we asked the teams to help support and design and implement. And so they feel like they've come along with the journey. We feel like we've got the right checkpoints in place and framework. Not every project or product implementation follows every point within the framework, but we think about each of those so that we don't miss anything on them.
Thank you for breaking the circle of trust on the questions. So yeah, look, you'll definitely be getting some made up questions now. We kind of touched on it a little bit when we're talking about governance and decisions at the start, and Philippa, you mentioned it before. One of the obvious constraints to just jumping into a product world and getting a product world to work for you is the yearly business planning and the financial year and the funding that goes around it. How have any of you dealt with that sort of finance team who still wants to, in a very regimented way, keep to that 12-month cycle, and so go in and asking for X amount of money for the capacity for a squad to work on a product on an ongoing basis? Has anybody had those conversations?
So I think we've addressed a lot of that, actually. So we have persistent teams with persistent fundings, with the teams funded to build and run their products and platforms. We then have a change pot for where we want to do kind of strategic changes where we need to burst capacity, or where we want to do kind of work that crosses multiple platforms, multiple teams. So that is almost like it's more outcome driven. We're kind of really defining our outcomes at the beginning of every year. We have already most of the capacity available to the teams, and then we have separate funding for burst capacity. But we don't have a challenge around, trying to work out what our change budgets are, run budgets are, funding persistent teams, because I think there's been quite a lot of education in our organization about the way the market's moving, the way the industry's moving, and that every time you want to do a change, spinning up a team, getting more people who don't know the platform, don't know the business, don't know each other, it's just too slow, too long, and much more expensive. So we've really taken this to heart, and we're in the process now of rebuilding all of our platform teams, redefining our product teams based on value and outcomes. So we're going to be thinking about support me or help me buy a home, help me invest, help me protect, all of those sorts of things, which will then drive further growth in our persistent teams, and then only focusing the funding on where we need to do something a bit extra.
So I think the main thing is, unless you are tracking your internal costs for your internal resource, which we don't currently, as much to my annoyance, I think we should actually track our own internal costs, because you don't know the true cost of delivery until you do that. So being able to map out, and it's not just in this environment, I mean, previous companies that I've worked for, we've always tracked and understood our run rate for squads. So how much does it cost? What does that mean? Well, when are you getting the value back for that? That's every sprint, how much does it cost you to have that team there if you're not delivering? And that's where sometimes those conversations with your finance departments it doesn't really matter really whether you're working from a project perspective or a product perspective. Your cost of delivery should be really important. Now, if you've got license to pay for, if you've got burst resource, if you're outsourcing, if you're with a test team and the testing is all outsourced, doesn't matter which way you're working, you've still got to be able to, I guess, quantify how much it's going to cost you to deliver, no matter what. So I think that both ways, there is still those conversations to have with the finance departments.
Thank you. And when we talk about product teams, we're kind of assuming a mix of developers or people doing configuration and testers, right? From a role specific to the product world, we'll talk about product owners, we'll talk about product managers. Does the title matter? Is it just the job they're doing, the role that they're performing? Is that the important thing? Because those two roles in particular seem to be interchanged in most organizations. Some have one, some have both. Some turn that into a hierarchy. What does that look like in your org and your experience of those roles?
This is something that I see a lot, because obviously I'm product manager role at the moment, and I think everywhere you go, everybody has got a different view of what that role looks like. So some places have got, my role in terms of my remit would maybe sit higher than it does in the business that I'm in now, and in other places it kind of sits lower. So I think it really does depend on the definition, and I think you've got to be really upfront about that, especially when you're hiring people into the team, and making it clear around what their responsibilities are going to be and how they're going to be expected to work. For me at the moment, we've got a structure of product manager, and then we've got product owners within each of the product areas, and that for me is around kind of the product manager role for me is around looking at the why are we doing these things and looking at the strategy and how we move it forward. And the product owners are the ones that are kind of in that day-to-day detail, supporting the developers, and working with the BAs to get the results that we need.
I actually agree with you. I'm used to product managers outward facing and product owners inward facing. At Freshfields, we call our product team product owners, and the name just doesn't, to me, sit right, because we don't own the product at all. So it's the business functions that own the products. So whether it be, Salesforce or Workday, it's HR or it's MBD that own the product. So it shouldn't really matter what the name of the role is. It's about the responsibilities and the accountabilities they have of what they're delivering, and setting the expectations. If you're hiring into that role, if you're calling it product owner, but it's not actually owning that product, I think it could cause some friction later in the line when somebody comes on board. So I think the whole recruitment piece has got to come into that too, setting their expectations.
I can add a little bit. We've kind of, I agree, the role names don't matter too much. We've kind of gone with a hybrid role here. So we have product managers, they're outward facing, strategic, and they look after specific areas that are split. So one may be a certain set of features, another one, and they have a couple of squads each. Within their teams, they've got product analysts. So within our business, we used to have business analysts that were purely technical business analysts, and then product owners that did the generalist product owner role. We've kind of merged those and had a more generalized job description, so that we're able to rotate people, give them different experiences so they don't get stale, don't get bored. There is drawbacks to that as well, though, that people don't understand on the market what product analyst is necessarily. You have to explain that further. I generally think the positives might outweigh the negatives. That being said, within our back office, which used to be product operations area, we're now renaming it business operations and reverting back to business analyst roles in that area, and because they're working more in a non-squad, more of a waterfall project delivery type way, just from the nature of the business.
And I think from a product analyst perspective, the answer to the question is yes, but I'm assuming there you write the user stories, write the tickets, which is often the contention, right? Is who's writing the tickets. You talked about product managers, product owners, and BAs. Who's writing the user stories in that world?
So generally, it's kind of a mixture between the product owner and the business analyst. So they work really closely together, and I think probably you are right in terms of that product analyst feels like a real good kind of name across the two. I think most product owners you'll find come from being a business analyst, and I think for me, yeah, in our world, it's kind of a mixture, and I've got a really good business analyst who's really technical and knows our business really well. And then I've got a product owner who's not been with the business for a while, like, you know, has recently joined. So actually having them work together has been really useful, and they will split that work equally. Yeah.
And then when we talk about maturity from a product perspective, you've got the day-to-day working as a squad. But from a product perspective, then there's always the question of, who writes the tickets, but also then the autonomy of that individual. From, are they solely in charge of the direction of what comes in and what they prioritize and what they do, be them a product owner or a product manager, whatever that role title is, all the way to the extreme of, do they own the P&L for that product, if that's possible, but that final state of being in full control. How does that work either where you are now or where you've seen it? How does it work where you are now, and how far along that line have you seen it go in terms of maturity?
So I spent 2 years at Amazon, so I've seen how it worked there, and there's a huge amount of accountability in the squads that they have, that we had. We've moved quite a long way towards that. So in Skipton, we've defined a set of platforms to start off with. So we've got our digital experience platforms, which customers engage with, right? The website, the email content, all that kind of stuff. And then we've got our app and portal. So as soon as you hit login, it's all the stuff that sits behind that. Then we've got things like our CRM system, which is on Dynamics, and then integration platform, core banking platform, cloud platforms, etc. And then the products sit across all those platforms, right? So depending on whether it's an ISA or a mortgage journey or whatever, then you might need a different set of skills or a group of skills to be able to make changes independently, so you don't have to go into every platform and ask for your thing, whatever that thing is. And so what we've got there is we've got product owners who are out in the business with teams of engineers and analysts, very similar to what you were describing there, identifying kind of what that member-facing or colleague-facing requirement is. And then we've got platform owners who own the platform roadmap, where we're taking that platform and looking after anything that's core and common, right? So if anybody wants to make a change to the payment service, they can't. That's common, that sits with me. So we're trying to build that kind of, if you know cloud, AWS, Azure, etc., we're trying to build that shared responsibility model that gives autonomy to products and product teams whilst having control at a platform level. And we're also moving then, you as a platform owner or product owner, you own the technology, you own the people, you own the outcomes that technology or technology group is delivering, and you own the P&L, right? And you own the risk. So that full ownership then gives accountability. We do a lot of work then in terms of vision, objectives, roadmaps, and then metrics, DORA metrics, team metrics, customer metrics, and they're able to determine operational and strategic improvement using scorecards and dashboards and insights. And then we bring all of that together as a group of products and platforms that make sure we've got alignment and integration across all of this in service of our business outcomes.
Nobody wants to trump that answer, Raj. Thank you. If we're talking around roles, the other ones that we haven't yet talked about in too much detail are sort of UX, but speaking about UX as sort of XD, you know, the whole discipline of the user element, and seeing some organizations now moving into job titles like customer journey manager and things like that. So from a whole discipline of XD, how is that working for you? How close are you to those teams? Are they in the squads? How do those relationships work with those kind of roles?
So during the scaling that we've had over the past 4 or 5 years, originally the UX team, the UXD team started as the same team or combined with the product team, and that was split out maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and they were moved into a separate team, but one of the 4 strategic pillars within our delivery department. Lots of teething issues. We tried to expand it too quickly. We were delivering things that's outside of the digital UXD space. So they were trying to influence other areas of the business, so, you know, our non-digital channel telephony, when we hadn't really grasped the delivery within our digital channels. We've worked really hard to bring the collaboration back together across all of the 4 disciplines, especially product and UX, because they balance the business versus the customer. And that balance is really key, and there needs to be an equal voice within that Venn diagram. We've moved more towards UXD and UX, looking after only our digital space, and we're actually moving as a business now to implement a CX team, and that's it across our commercial and our digital delivery space. So they would start to take on ownership of our end-to-end customer journeys, both digital, non-digital, across our telephony channels and our paper communications. And we found that's a real gap, and it's joining together that CRM with operational communication, with digital channels and how people, and really identifying all the key pain points and pinch points within those journeys so that we can really try and hone those. We've probably it's taken us a while to get to this point because we've been doing a lot of technical upgrades and replatforming, and we're coming to the end of that. So actually our teams can start to really concentrate on more the value to the customer and how we can drive that alongside improvements for the business.
So yeah, a few years back, I was a mobile app product owner at Pets at Home, and actually working there was, when I started, there was only 4 of us, and we were development managers then, and then became product owners. And during the time there, as they started to grow out the team, UX started to come in to the business. It was the first time they brought it in-house. And what we actually ended up doing was, as the squads were established, so we had a mobile app squad, we had a checkout squad, and various different squads. Each squad would have a product owner, you'd have a UX designer, and then you'd have developers and VAs all within that squad. And actually working in that way I found really useful, because the UX designer was really involved in kind of some of that early requirements gathering. And I think sometimes as products, we're really easy to just go ahead and get the requirements and try to understand what it is we need to do without actually bringing UX along on that journey. And I think it's really important for them to understand from quite early on what it is we're trying to achieve.
Thank you. And then I guess the other one, when we talk about workloads, backlogs, and tickets and throughput, obviously you've got all of the things that you want to do from a new feature development, a new product development perspective. We've got tech debt as well, obviously, but then often there's the service management, support elements of that as well. So how does that work for you guys? Is it you make it, you break it, you fix it, or is there other ways you do it?
So yeah, the teams, the squads look after all of the work, right? And in the Phoenix project, they talk about 4 types of work: business projects, internal projects, change, and unplanned work. So they're accountable for all of that. Now, there might be different ways the work turns up. So change, sorry, my phone's going off. Stop that, annoying. So there might be things like change and incidents and tech debt. Tech debt will be classed as internal improvements or optimization, automation, all of that sort of stuff. The team is designed to kind of determine what they need to do to run their product and platform. So, you know, they're accountable for their SLAs, they're accountable for their budgets, they're accountable for kind of responding to feedback on their platform and changing the platform, but also working out how they service the strategic projects and make sure we've got the right capacity against the whole lot. So they might, you know, depending on what their pipelines and backlogs look like, request more people, you know, and we'll expand the team but the key thing then is we need to make sure that there's no point going faster and spending more time building new stuff if the service is bad. So, you know, my priority for I come from an ITIL background. I know you give the Prince 2 qualification. I've got all the ITIL ones. So I'm more of an ops dev rather than DevOps kind of person. So service has to be king first. Service, stability, reliability, security, all of that sort of stuff, and then change, right? So the analogy we use a lot at Skipton is of Formula One. We were talking about that earlier on, and that, you know, the championship is our corporate goal. The races are the innovations we want to deliver, but then our lap times are our iterations towards that goal. And we can only increase lap times if we've got the braking system, the downforce, the safety in place to go faster. So for me, speed is relative to stability. So we spend a lot of time on that, and we don't have many incidents. We don't have a lot of things that we need to fix on a reactive manner, but we do have a fair bit of technical debt. And actually, what we've seen over the last 6 months is people to start focusing on that technical debt, which is causing a problem with lead times, because now they're getting to things that were like 2-3 years old and actually getting it done. And we're seeing then the performance of the platform stabilize and the rate of change improve.
So we do have our support in the project teams as well as, so we use the same resource quite often. So we don't have lots of integration developers, our actual developers. We've got one Workday developer. We've got 2 Salesforce developers, I think it is. So it's not, we don't have lots and lots of people. So no, naturally, it's the same people every time, whether it be they're working on a project or within a squad, depending on how that work is split, they are the ones that also have to fix it. So our delivery, as well as whether it be on a project delivery or for a product, they can often be impacted. If we have to have an integration with Workday, but the Workday developer is on the squad, which is what they are, well, we have to take time out of that squad, or it has to go into the backlog for their work. So the dependency management across that is high, as well as, well, we've got an MI. Oh, we've got another MI. Sorry, we're going to have to stop. And it stops not just the projects, but also the squad delivery too. So world of pain sometimes, to be honest. I think that's the key. But I don't think there's any easy way to work. I think it's when you've got a small team, small number of developers, I think you are, well, you've got to grow the capability across the teams rather than just having one single point of success, let's say.
Yeah, success. When we then look at delivery, and I'm looking at the roles outside on the periphery of the squad, when we're talking ways of working. Some people cover off delivery in terms of roles like agile delivery managers, things like that. Some it is part of the responsibilities of a role like an engineering manager or something like that. Neither really exist on a purist diagram of what a Scrum team, for example, would look like. So again, how do you deal with that, and how necessary or not do you think it is to have that delivery skill set and experience close to squads, or is it overbearing and unnecessary? I thought you might put your hand up there.
I've worked with Chris before. So I worked at Sky, I worked at Covea. Every time, so I was head of delivery at Sky, and we had heads of technology for each of the tribes back in the day when we called them tribes. So my team was very much there to deliver the governance, deliver the projects, put that dependency management across the tribes and manage those dependencies across it, as well as look at the funding, as well as look at the resource. So it was never an easy role, because you're always getting, well, that's your job because you're just on the dependency management, but we were never included so much as part of the tribe. So I think it's really important that we do have delivery over these areas. We had the same setup at Covea as well. The things that often get missed are your governance and your rates and your risk around it. And so many times in product teams that I've seen, nobody is that interested in risk. We all find it really dull, your risk management, let's go and talk about risks again, but they're the things that come and bite you. And that I think is often the thing that just gets pushed to one side if you don't have the delivery mindset of, well, how much is it costing? When are we going to deliver it? Are we doing what we said we would do? And it's as simple as that. Are we delivering what we said we'd deliver? Not always about the timelines, but it's that governance side. That was the quality of how we're talking about something and keeping to what we're saying we're doing. That's what I think delivery is, whether it be delivery managers, agile delivery managers, project managers, program managers. It's that mindset that sometimes the product teams don't have.
I agree with what you just said. However, but I think sometimes the product manager role, when they're managing strategic forward-facing outputs are also managing some of the delivery outputs. And so key, certainly in our organisation here at II, the product managers really is a dual role of product manager and delivery manager. But as we've scaled and grown and introduced a scaled framework, we've noticed that we have had a gap. And so we've actually recently moved towards implementing a delivery manager, engineering manager type role. We have engineering managers, they're more of people managers of the developers within the individual teams. But we have missed that coordination piece, who are helping us coordinate those risks and dependencies across the squads, and also external factors where we've got dependencies that don't sit within the delivery spaces. And hopefully that will help us coordinate those in the future.
I did great.
Thank you.
I think I agree with both of you, actually. So we've got a scaled agile framework in place. We have a change portfolio, a PMO, etc. What we found was that we didn't have a lot of platform ownership, because a lot of the ownership ended up with delivery managers or project managers. And then because of that, we never really got to the technical debt and things like that. So we are reorientating so that the platforms are owned by platform owners and product owners, and delivery leads are embedded in the team. They become part of the team. Still part of the change function, but now they're a persistent. So in our we're also trying to move a little bit away from roles and talk more about skills, but let's keep with the roles. So we'll have a platform owner, product owner. Within there, we'll have maybe one, depending on the size of the organization, maybe 2 or 3 principal engineers, and all of the engineers, be they software engineers or quality engineers, all sitting there. You'll have a business analyst or product analyst from the change function, have a delivery lead, maybe multiple delivery leads, depending on the size of the platform or product, and then we'll have a platform architect, right? They collectively own the value, flow, and quality, where the value of what we're delivering is coming out of the platform owner, product owner. The flow is coming through delivery lead. So trying to get away from that project mindset to say, right, how do we improve deployment frequency, lead time, cycle time, mean time to restore, change failure rate, incidents, all of that kind of stuff. And then quality sits with the platform architect and the principal engineers. So we've got that really nice tension. So we go through the norming, storming, forming pretty fast, actually, because they've all got different priorities. It says, you know, I'm the platform owner, I want value and I want it now. And then the delivery says, no, we've got to optimize for flow. And then, you know, you've got the principal engineer saying, I ain't building that. It's broken, right? So we're starting to give that team accountability for value, flow, and quality to deliver outcomes against happier members, healthier operations, stronger business. And all of that has attention to it as well.
Okay. I'll line up one more question for Philippa to knock down. In terms of people in the room, how many people have Scrum Masters in their teams? If I was to have asked the same question 5 years ago, how many would you have? Okay, so it looks like a relatively new thing. For Scrum Masters, and I'm not going to go into too much into the role profile, but from a delivery perspective, it's quite an interesting one, because when you look at wanting to recruit in more delivery professionals, agile delivery leads, whoever they are, a lot of organizations are kind of defaulting to going, well, we've got Scrum Masters and that is a linear path to delivery. But then, you know, we talked about Prince 2 before. A lot of those individuals don't necessarily have the experience on RAID and RACI and PIDs and all that kind of stuff that goes with it. What are your thoughts on there? How do we recruit good delivery people, even if we are working in a product organization with the right skill set, I guess?
That was often the bane of my life sometimes. So for years we had Scrum Masters, but with no delivery sometimes over it. Delivery manager. The mindset of Scrum Masters often when they come in is very much for the team, for the people, making sure everyone's happy, which is a great thing, right? Happy teams produce, they deliver, you know, it's a great place to be. However, trying to get somebody to actually think about the cost of delivery or the dependencies or what's, you know, standard project management, program management, delivery management style is the governance side of it and the risk and the issues. And it was just so difficult. So I used to interview Scrum Masters as well as delivery managers because they all sat under delivery. And I'll say, so, okay, so if you put it on a dial and said, Is it about the timeline and the delivery and the cost, or is it about the people? Where would your dial be on a, on a sort of a speedometer dial? And that would often give me some, just like, where is their heart? Where do they think? Where do they naturally go? And you can't often change mindsets on people on that. If they are all for the people and the team and making sure that, trying to get them to change to a delivery mindset is extremely difficult. Whereas if you're from the project management background, you tend to think more about when you're going to deliver it and the issues that you're going to have and everything that comes with it. Trying to find somebody who looks at both is extremely difficult from a Scrum Master perspective. So there's no easy answer, basically.
I also want to chip in. I just realised you're not here for the second half, so if there's any pointed questions from any Scrum Masters in the room, we're going to struggle. Remember, Philip is here during the break, so go direct. When looking at scale a little bit, so easy to think about individual squads looking after individual sort of siloed areas of concern, whatever they are. How have you guys seen that work at scale? So the change you're making is significant, the product size or whatever it is, the channel is big, you need more than one squad. How have you dealt with the dependencies, the shared code base, have you implemented any more of the scaled frameworks? What's your experience around product at scale?
So I suppose we're at the middle of the journey. I've talked a bit about the fact that we've scaled and we've grown in size, and we've moved very much away from a platform-led, i.e. web, mobile, to a more feature-led delivery methodology. We've encountered a lot of issues with scaling and identifying the risks and dependencies, and I suppose that's why we've put in place the governance framework that I spoke about earlier, about channeling the size of the project or feature through the right channel, whether that's directly squad-led or whether it's project-led. For those pieces of work that are large-scale pieces of work, and we've channeled them down our project delivery route, we put a more rigorous framework around them. So we've got checkpoints in place, we've got governance meetings, we stand up specific steering meetings with the right individuals and the right stakeholders from the business in order to be able to drive those delivery items forward. I wouldn't say we've got it right, and I think we need to implement more of with the delivery engineering manager, more identification of risks and dependencies upfront early, in order for us to enable us to deliver those projects or those larger pieces of work successfully.
I think we're in a similar place. So the first thing is if it's a big piece of work, we'll try and break it down and deliver it in small chunks. So we've recently just come out of some really big transformational projects, which we'll never ever do again, because that's not the way to transform. So now we're moving more into what is the outcome we're looking to deliver? How do we break that into smaller chunks? Where we do need to do more of that is around complexity. When the work's particularly complex, particularly new, we do exactly the same. We'll then spin up the right governance and the structures, and maybe have one of our senior delivery leads, or back in the day, program managers, around the whole piece of work, working with the different squads. Back in the day, we'd also spin up separate squads with separate teams to do a piece of work and then pass it back to the original squad. That doesn't work either. So we've kind of starting to break some of that up, so that the key thing about it is I don't think there's anything wrong with, I'm going to get slapped, aren't I? Waterfall, Prince2, ITIL, Kanban, Scrum, making it up as you go along. The key thing is what is the outcome? What is the job to be done, if I use that language? And what's the right tool to do it? So what we're trying to do, again, back to the skills, is actually, first of all, we're just going all the way back to Kanban. We're just pulling from production and starting to manage WIP limits and create that flow. And then when we know we've got something that is going to take a bit longer to go deliver, and now we know the flow, now we know the capacity, then we can start going into a Scrum and put some of the ceremonies in. And so we're trying to work out what the right thing to do is for the different outcome we're trying to deliver. If that makes sense.
You don't always get that right, though.
No.
Well, we obviously don't always get that right, and
There's been occasions when we've had to switch things from a specific type of delivery to more complex and put that wrapper around it. We've had several cases probably over the last year where we've started a delivery, allocated a product manager or a certain squad to deliver that as the lead squad and coordinate the other smaller items within other squads, and realised actually this is a huge piece of work. We need to put that governance wrapper around it with a project or program manager. And it's setting out at the start of those types of projects what are the responsibilities, and it's coming back to Aracy, those old delivery method or the foundation delivery methodologies. Who's responsible for what within that piece of work and that delivery? And if you get that right from the start, then actually it doesn't matter which methodology you use, you'll carry on with that delivery.
Super, thank you. Taking things up a level then to exec, the board, whatever, EMT, whatever you've got there. In terms of either project or product, where does responsibility for those two things sit in your current board structure? So what's the path up through product and delivery to board, or is it matrix, or is it, for example, through the tech team, or is there a CPO on the board, or does it go through commercial or something else? I think this is one for everyone.
All of the platform capability sits with the CIO, and then the outcomes that are delivered for homes, money, finance by them, right? Which means the product owners in the business own that accountability up into there. So we have to create that structure that says, what do we own? What does the business own? And make sure we've got that shared responsibility right. And that's...
Yeah, so for us at the moment, product sits firmly within our IT department, and our reporting line goes up through our CIO. I think for me, personally, my preference would be that we sat separate from IT, and equally, I've seen it where it sits in marketing as well, and I don't think it should sit there either. I feel like it's its own entity, and at Pets at Home, that it was its own entity, and I felt like that was the way it was delivered best, and you got the most buy-in from more of the senior leaders because they understood it better.
So our product owners sit within our IT department, and I don't necessarily agree with it, but it's just naturally, I think everywhere I've worked, it's sat within IT. I also think that with the structure that we've got, when we've got Salesforce and we've got Workday as examples of our products, the Chief People Officer had the responsibility for Workday. So they will take a lot of the responsibility for the prioritization around what happens. Now, it's not obviously them necessarily directly, but our product owners are the conduit almost into those squads to enable the right prioritization that takes it for whether it be features or new integrations that they want to do, or new AI products that they want to bring in. So that's really where it sits. So CTO primarily into the board.
II product is one of the 4 delivery pillars. So we've got product and UX, which is separate functions with heads of. We've got delivery, which has got a head of, which is development and test function. And then we have project. It's split across 2 different execs. So the developers or the technology side and the project side sit underneath the chief technology officer, and the product side and UX side sit underneath the chief service officer, who also owns a lot of our service propositions, customer service, transfers, that area of the business. It works because it's very personality driven. The 2 execs are very coordinated, not often agreeing, but work really well together. So it works down the chain. We have come into a lot of difficulty making sure that delivery function has the same single message, and they feel like one organization rather than 4 strands being pulled in different directions. Would it work with different personalities sat above? Maybe not.
And I've seen a few instances, and not just when you, and I can say this because I've just come from working at a consultancy. When you work at a consultancy, you can make up your own job title. But of CTPOs, so Chief Technical and Product Officers, Have we got a view on that as to whether or not it's a good thing, a bad thing? It sounds like a lot of things for one person to be responsible for, but at least most of your arguments are going to be with yourself, right? Anyone got a view?
I think you probably need to have the checks and balances between the two different roles within there, the technology element and the product element. It's that pushing value, but actually the technology side of we need to make sure we're looking after our stack, we're making sure that we're up to date, we've got the right plan for that, which might not always align to the value for customers and for the business. So I think there needs to be a balance between the two. It doesn't say it necessarily can't be the same role, but underneath would potentially need to be split specifically.
I would agree. Okay, we've got a couple of minutes to the break. We've managed to get through, I think, the whole of 55 minutes without mentioning AI. So here's your one gratuitous AI question right at the end. As we move into using AI a lot more, and I'm not talking about all the business cases and stuff you can do within the business, but from a product versus project perspective, have you guys come across any good use cases? Have you implemented anything yet that is helping your teams on a day-to-day basis? I assume somewhere we're going to be using some element of Claude Code and stuff like that, but from a product and delivery perspective, are we using it for helping to write tickets, acceptance criteria, breaking out business cases? Anybody doing any of that?
Yeah, we've started started a lot with that. So we've got we're probably using 90% of our licenses that we've got across our engineering teams, and so we're seeing daily use of Claude to build code, write code, which is good. We are we've got quite a lot of migrations to do, so we've just moved to like a Databricks environment in our data environment, and we've got an old SQL environment, and we've got hundreds of reports written over the last 4 years on it or something like that. And we're actually we're doing some trialing where we're actually getting AI to rewrite the code for us, so that we can accelerate that migration. So rather than it now, I think the quote was like 3 or 4 people for a full year. It's actually 3 or 4 people for a couple of months. So we're looking at that. We've got our back office is a proprietary system called Jade, which is a company we own, and there's 40 years worth of code in there. Nobody really knows of it. There's dark arts. The people have retired and probably not even on the planet anymore. I don't know. Well, that's why it's dark arts. And we're using LLMs to help us understand the code and how to simplify it, detangle it, make it lighter, etc. So we're starting to use some of that, and we're also looking at tools and capabilities that have AI built in around observability, pipelines, creating automated test data and stuff like that. So identifying what is it we're going to build and what's the tests we're going to run and what data do we need for those tests. So we're starting to look at all. It's all very early days, but a lot of it is about kind of the engineering workforce starting to get comfortable with these capabilities and feel like they're confident enough and trust them. So we're doing quite a lot around AI education. We've started to do some hackathons and game days and stuff like that. We've got a lot more to do, but starting to just bring that confidence up. And then where like the data engineering team had this use case around the migrations, which kind of then led the core banking team to go, I wonder if we can throw our core banking code in there and start to see it. So that cross-sharing and fertilization of ideas is
we are on the cusp of it, I would say. So we are looking within my team, at least, bringing in a hackathon in a couple of months for our community of practice, where I've got BAs, delivery managers, project managers, testing environments, and it's how can we achieve delivery, accelerate delivery through efficiencies in how we build our requirements, write our requirements, look back on previous projects and reuse requirements across that, but using the AI tools to get to that point. We also, I mean, James, we're starting to look at the test case, writing test cases based on AI, on how that can support us as well. So I think we're pretty much going to be doing it. Yes, we're bringing in lots of AI tools, whether it be about time recording. So how can you record your timesheets How does it scrape calendars? What do you do to be able to do that as well? So obviously in law firms, every 6 minutes costs money. So, you know, the quicker that we can get the bills out, the quicker we can get the money in. So yeah, it's not just within the delivery teams, it's across the firm as to how we can best use the AI tools to be able to become more efficient in everything we do.
Yeah, so from an AI perspective, we as a business are really starting to kind of look into, you know, get really into what we're doing. So within our delivery teams, they're doing stuff with code and things. One of our bigger things is around from a construction is around land and planning. So we're doing some stuff in AI with that, where we'll look at kind of, you know, areas where actually we'll get better value for if we purchase specific bits of land, and using AI to support some of that. And then we've got some stuff going on within the business with our internal IT teams. We've got Multiverse, and they're a business that do apprenticeships in AI. And so we've just rolled out the first lot of apprentices within our teams, and looking at how they can support our data using AI as well.
It sounds like we're quite close to Skipton in where we're currently at. We've spent a lot of time over the last probably 12 months laying the foundations within our delivery team. So from a design system, from a UX perspective, we've now got a design system and a storybook that has the appropriate code for implementation. We've built our whole design system around wireframing for our start of our iterations. We've used our internal AI system, AII, which the data team have built. So it houses all of our customer data. It's in an encapsulated environment, so that we can use that to build personas, modeling, even to the point of the UX team having certain AI personas so that we can do user testing, accessibility testing on our actual customer demographic. So we're at the point now of tipping, of bringing all of those individual pieces from each of the pillars together to see how we can loop that from the initial design system, AI building out some designs using our storybook, spitting out the user stories, the business requirements, the test criteria, the automated test sheets, to then build that code and obviously then go on to test it. We're being really cautious because we're a regulated environment. The business is a little bit nervous. So we've done the bits that are the low-hanging fruit, the quick wins, and now we need to see how we can loop that together over the course of the next 6 months. And the business has set itself a challenge to do that, to bring it together. We're really clear it's not about job cuts or redundancies or any of that stuff. It's about how can we do more with the people we've got and create efficiencies so that we free up those mundane tasks. Story writing for product people, it's mundane after you've done it for years and years and years. You don't want to write stories. Someone else can do that for us. The bits that people enjoy, the analysis, the thinking about the problem solving, how can our teams, both in UX, dev, product and test, how can they do the bits that really add value to what they're doing rather than the bits that actually we can automate?
Can I add something? Yeah. So also regulated. Our first major use case in AI is with our risk and compliance team on consumer duty, where it used to take 3 or 4 months to take sample customer experiences and then analyze them and then be able to determine whether we met or failed consumer duty and then what improvements we need to make, to being able to do that overnight against the whole data set. You did the same thing. Wow. Are we working for the same business?
And then you just get the buy-in because they know now, they understand.
Super. Okay, thank you very much for the first half. And we're going to take a break where I think most of us are going to go and get coffee, and Louis and Raj, I think, are going to go and get a room. And there's organisations even more. For the guys that are on the call, we'll put ourselves on mute and we'll turn the camera off. If you've got any questions, especially on the call, please do put them in the chat. What we're trying to do there is just touch as many different areas of the project as we can with rather inane questions. So apologies for that, but hopefully it then triggers some better questions from you guys in the second half. So, Sam, are we following you to get coffee?
Yeah, be Louis.
Can you? Oh, there we go. I can hear myself in the room. Can you hear me on the call? I'm just going to go with the yes. Yeah, super, thumbs up. Super, so my job is done now. That's very easy. All I've got to do is walk around with a microphone now. But the task is over to you to come up with some questions to throw to the panel. What normally happens now is roughly about 45 seconds worth of awkward silence. But if anybody wants to jump in and go first, then I will push the mic. Oh, thank you very much.
Say the 45 seconds. So I think you said earlier that some of you moved to a stability first. Right, it was you that mentioned that. How do you set the expectations of the business that we're actually going to focus on stability rather than delivering new features? Something that we're struggling with at the moment is we have quite frequent major incidents in production, but the business won't allow us to stop and sort of improve stability because they keep, oh, there's this new thing we want, there's this new thing we want. So how do you balance stability versus new features?
Okay, there's probably two parts, maybe three parts to that question. The first part is Skipton Building Society's been here since 1853, 170 something years. And we've got a lot of long-standing people who've been in the business who've built some of the platforms and built some of the capabilities that we've got. And actually, I walked in just over a year ago thinking there'd be hundreds, maybe thousands of incidents, big backlogs, major incidents all the time. There were major incidents, but not that many. And actually, what our problem is a bit weird because we're overemphasizing on quality and stability versus taking a bit of risk and going faster. So our challenge is a little bit the opposite. To say, actually, do you know what? We could accrue a bit of technical debt if we do it in a controlled way, you know, in a planned way, like buying a house, right? You're going to get debt, but you're going to pay it back, right? So as long as you've got that. But the other thing that wasn't happening was things that were there were major incidents, so we kind of needed to prioritize that a little bit. A big thing that helped was me walking in, and I came from Amazon, so I kind of had some credibility. So I came into an organization where I'd say something, and people went, "Okay." I was like, "Yeah, these platforms need some love," and the answer was, "Okay." And I want to be able to deliver faster for you, so I need to get rid of the technical debt to make it happen. Okay. And then, you know, then there was the conversation that says, well, but Raj, we've got all of this stuff that we want to do. Right, let's break it down. Let's look at the work. Let's identify what we're doing. Let's stop doing work. Can we have a look at what's in the backlogs, what's in work in progress? And we stopped a load of stuff. So now we're getting into a flow where the level of effort to run the platforms and run the products is a lot lower because we don't have those incidents coming in. We don't have those major incidents. We don't have unplanned work in the same way at the same level. Still got a long way to go, but it's a lot less. And we're releasing that capacity back into value delivery. And we're prioritizing that value delivery better rather than it being on, I just want this shiny thing, to what value are you going to deliver? Let's go deliver a small part of that. Let's test that the value is being delivered before we do any more. So there's a big mindset thing, and kind of, if you've seen kind of my LinkedIn profile posts and stuff like that, I've been doing a lot of messaging on LinkedIn, which is partly for a recruitment campaign, but partly as a mechanism to communicate to our business stakeholders who are also very prolific on LinkedIn, rather than talking to them through board reports and packs and whatever else it is. They're now engaging with me through my posts to say, right, I get what you're trying to do. So a large part of this is education. That's the third part, I guess, the education. And then once you've got that, and then you know, it's not like I'm just trying to run platforms and keep them healthy and tidy and not care about what the business wants. I want to innovate. In fact, I want the platforms to be healthy, stable, and adaptive because I want to stop worrying about engineering stuff, and I want to go fiddle with the business and go invent new stuff. So it's good like that. And I think we're an organization that we don't have offices. We don't have, you know, all the CEOs for all the different businesses. They just sit on the floors. We're really quite an open organization. And that really helps because if somebody doesn't get something, you just ask. And I think that's quite nice, particularly when we're all in one building in one location. happiest place in the world if you didn't know that, Skipton.
Cheers.
Anything else to add, Lauren?
I agree with what you just said.
Of course you do.
We're just
We'll just do
saying
that. I'll start taking the microphone back. It looks like I've got quite a few questions. Anybody else?
Hi. So obviously none of you are 100% project or product, which is reassuring. So one of the challenges we have is we've got product teams and they've got product owners, but they also have projects who are wanting to feed work in. So we've got a problem. We've got separate prioritization coming into what should be a prioritized backlog. And in many instances, the product owners become disempowered because there's so much project work, it fills their backlogs for a number of sprints. How have you tackled that?
We had exactly the same situation, and we still have the same situation, but we've put some controls and governance in place to help support the project teams and the product teams delivering BAU and incremental value to the feature sets that they own. So we put a governance structure in place to have a portfolio change management meeting effectively. So that meeting consists of the project planners and deliverables, the PMO, and also the product managers that lead each of the feature groupings that they own. We put a freeze in place so that project pieces of work need to come into the planning process early enough to be able to be planned into the delivery pipelines. All features or BAU work had to have benefit statements attached to them so that we can demonstrate to the rest of the business the benefit for these. That could be a technical benefit, tech debt, that side of stuff. It could be a commercial benefit, it could be an FTE saving. We also made sure that we have a split going through delivery. So at any one point, it couldn't be more than 50-50 of project work versus feature delivery.
Yeah. So you do what we do. But that's not product in my eyes. A product is, you've got a product team, they're owning the P&L, they're determining value based on mission statements, they're independent. If you've got 50% of your work coming from a project, you are not true product. You're in a halfway, and it might be that that's as good as you can get, and that's great, gives me some validation, but I'm looking for that silver bullet or someone who's actually maybe took that a little bit more.
Which I throw it? He's like to sit down.
So one of the things that we did at PETS that I'm trying to push for as part of the way we build out our teams at Persimmon is having separate BAU squads to project squads, and then actually spinning up if there's a new project that's come in that needs support or needs product in, that doesn't then affect our day-to-day original backlog. So almost having two separate backlogs for that work.
Is that on the? I can shout. Is that on the same application code base though? Because then you're going to have some conflicts.
Yeah, so it will be, and the way that we work that through is having separate branches for delivery. So the way that we're setting it up is we're going to have a kind of a bigger feature projects branch that will be done. Kind of a middle of the road one, which is covering off all BAU stuff, and then we'll have an urgent change hotfix branch, and the devs will be able to switch between.
I really wish I had a whiteboard right now.
I'll get you.
Draw this.
I'll get you at the end. I'll meet you there.
So, the first thing is we've defined our platform architecture and how our products will interface with into our platforms. The product teams will be made of different engineering capabilities that be able to make changes to the different platform layers depending on what the outcome is. What we need to do around that is build a shared responsibility model so that what's platforms is platforms and the products can make changes that they want to make, right? What we're trying to do is, one of the things where projects are needed is where you've got dependencies across different platforms or products. And so you have this coordination layer. What we're trying to do is break the coordination layer, remove those dependencies, removing things like queuing theory. So what we don't want is a change to go into the core banking platform, the integration platform, whatever, and surface all of those capabilities. And I'm going to talk skills in the people in the product teams to be able to make changes across the whole stack independently. So what we're trying to do is eliminate all the dependencies and then eliminate the need for projects. We will have certain projects because we still have some physical infrastructure and stuff like that. So when we put a new server and a new rack in, that'd be more like waterfall-y kind of stuff. But we want to get to the point where platform teams can do platform work, and we will have some capacity assigned purely just on platform work, right? But then also identifying, being able to, within the platform teams and within the product teams, be able to shapeshift. So this is what Amazon do really freaking well. They can shapeshift on demand almost. So their business agility is not only to do with their organizational agility and their leadership principles and the agency that they give all of their people, but also their architectural agility. So that's the bit I'm kind of trying to share badly here, is we've not got to just do the organizational stuff. We have to do the architecture stuff, right? And the engineering stuff. So we can have a loosely coupled architecture. We can build pipelines in. We can allow engineers who may not have all of the skills to be able to deploy stuff into production. But as long as it goes through the pipeline, it's fine. If you break it, if your code's bad, it's not going to end up in production. That's the key thing. And if you break it and it's your product, you fix it, right? If you've broken my platform, I'm going to back it out. And then you're getting into mean time to restore and, change failure rates and all of that sort of stuff. So, and also what I want to do with my platform model and capability is particular product teams are constantly behaving badly. I'm going to put more governance in front of them, right? And then when they get good again, so gamifying product and platform owners, and also just getting to a point where we can deliver smaller value slices rather than big programs, big projects, simplify complexity, and enable people just to go and deliver value to the members. Does that make sense? Better if I drew it, but I had it in my head, if you could see it.
Thank you very much. Next question, please. Oh, you caught my eye first, sir.
I guess my question was similar to that you partially answered, and is around how do you make that start to in product teams when you've got tightly coupled monolithic architecture that means you can't just do small incremental deliveries without crash and testing the entire stack and it becoming a project by its nature of that coordination. What's that first starting point?
Steps in. So our core banking platform is monolithic, with 40 years worth of code and tech debt and all of that sort of stuff built in. But it's also stable and highly configurable, so we can do whatever we want. I think we were the first to do lifetime ISA.
But I think we were the first because we could change our core banking platform.
You guys are away.
Yeah, I was looking to you to confirm that we do the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. Open roles.
We were having a conversation earlier, right? So what I've had to do with each one of the teams to get the teams together, none of the teams had clear vision or goals or objectives or roadmaps. They were all working PI to PI to PI, right? Every 3 months. And they were just running after the ball, right? So got them all, 2-day workshop. First, where are you going? What's the plan? Where's the vision, right? And then doing what I call the sailboat exercise that determines the kind of the Paradise Island, the promised land, where are we going? What's holding you back? What's helping you get there? And what are your risks, right? So you spend a good half a day doing that, and you suddenly start to identify that the team does actually have a view of where they want to go and where they want to go with the platform or the product, and they identify the things that hold them back. Now in the core banking platform, it was things like tech debt, and every time we pull a piece of spaghetti, we find the whole ball, right? And actually, every time we do a change, we have to do it out of hours because there's database lock-in and blah, blah, blah. So we're only doing monthly releases unless it's a hot fix or whatever. And basically, there was all of these big policies and big rules put in place. So the next bit then is to look at work. So we identified all of the work, right? And when you put a big Kanban up and you put all of the work in there, business projects, change, internal projects, unplanned work, incidents, all of that in there, suddenly you just see this wall full of Post-its in every lane. So then you start talking about WIP limits and pulling to the right and pulling to production, swarming. So stop thinking about the role that you've got. So I was going to answer one of the questions earlier. Some of my engineers are writing stories now. Write your own flipping story, you know? You know what the work is, you know what to do, you know how to define it, create your definition of done acceptance criteria, maybe have somebody else peer review it and sign it off, and then get it shipped. And then the final bit is flow. So then we start looking at flow and doing value stream mapping to identify where all the processing time is, the wait times, where the key constraints are. And then what the teams are started to do is self-organize, self-heal, self-improve, right? I know this is being recorded, but my daughter made me watch Married at First Sight.
Likely story, yeah.
But the interesting thing is they have a commitment ceremony every couple of weeks or whatever it is. So at the end of this goals, work and flow set of workshops, the team have a commitment ceremony where they commit to each other and show accountability to each other for the things that they're going to improve. And 6 weeks later, we then revisit them, right, as a leadership team and say, right, what have you done? And where are your bottlenecks? And 90% of all the things the team want to do, the team can do. They've not once, not one team out of all of the portfolios have said, Raj, I need more people, I need more money, I need more tools. They're self-improving with what they've got, right? And we're seeing the measurements improve, right? And one of the things, coming back all the way circle to your question then, is teams are now going, do I really need to regression test everything? Can I do risk-based testing? Can I do targeted testing? What can I automate? What's automated already? What do I need to simplify? Are our pipelines working? So somebody was like, one of the teams was like, we keep having to hit refresh. Why? Because we don't trust the pipeline until it gives us the right answer. Go fix the pipeline then, right? Or, you know, build times were on the app were 9 hours. 9 hours to compile our app. Crazy. So we bought some Mac Minis, put that infrastructure into our data center. 4 minutes. 9 hours to 4 minutes now. I don't know how fast your build times are. But there's that constant thinking now is how do I improve? And it doesn't matter what the improvement is. Now, every day, every sprint, every PI, improvement is happening. And it comes to that kind of culture of curiosity. It comes to creating a culture of agency and of courage and just allowing teams, not even allowing, I don't like the words allowing and empowering. It's just them realizing actually they just can. Nothing's stopping them. You know that story about the monkeys and the banana in a cage? Oh. Yeah, no? Do you want me to tell you that one? Yeah. It's more interesting than products, right? See, there's this thing where they put these monkeys in a cage. Really don't do this at home, right? And they put this banana up on and every time a monkey went up to get the banana, you'd jet wash the monkey, right? And everybody would get hurt and they'd all go down back the corner shivering, right? And after a while, none of the monkeys will go get the banana. Even if you remove the jet wash, it's not there anymore. Nobody will go touch the banana. And if somebody else, a new monkey came into the cage, if that monkey went to go get the banana, the others would attack the monkey and bring it back, right? So you ended up with this culture of fear. And what we're saying to people is that culture of fear is gone. We now need to take a bit more risk. Yes, we want to control the risk. So yeah, fail fast, but we're going to control failure. So we're learning through small failures, not big failures, because now we're delivering smaller features more often. But it's creating that culture, that environment of courage, of bravery, psychological safety, which doesn't mean everybody's nice to each other. So we've had some really robust conversations. People have robust conversations with me, and I'm like, okay, I need to take this and lean in. And it's creating that environment where everybody's got that that agency. Paddy McCord, who was a Netflix director, wrote a book called Powerful, and she said, people have power, don't take it away. And most organizations have taken the power of the people away. And so we're trying to reverse that, which is really, really hard, but we're seeing good signs in that space.
Thank you. One thing I'd add is there's no proven way of doing it, but whatever route you go down, just start doing it and do your test and learn, because otherwise you end up in a position. So I'm 6 weeks into a role. And when I went through the interview process, it became very apparent that a large amount of the systems are still on mainframe, IBM mainframes, in a physical data center in Bradford. And so I knew that when I started. I was like, okay, part of my consideration. When I started, I got told 2 weeks earlier they bought a new one because the old one was out of support. So I think we're the only company in 2026 in the UK who's bought another mainframe and installed it. And there was an IBM salesman somewhere at the Ferrari garage. Can't believe their luck. But not only have I still got to do everything that I did before, I've now got to have conversations with finance about how that asset is written off over time, and it just adds another layer into it. And there's always going to be something else that, is going to potentially make it more difficult. So I don't know my plan yet, but we're going to do something, and we're going to try and do it as quickly as we can. Next question, please.
Hi. It's a question for the panel. It's about the funding model, and you've got different versions of that. And I'm interested in particular around the product managers and product owners and the sort of level of autonomy in that space. What can they do? What governance do you have around what they do, how they spend the budget, and what are the checkpoints and governance?
So our product teams and our delivery squads, when they sit outside of project delivery, or when they're not taken over to deliver certain projects, sitting similar to, as described earlier, self-funded. So they're not tracked from funding. That's internal resource costs. We know that we're going to deliver. We said we're going to deliver, or at the start of the year when we set out our delivery strategy, the execs sign off that these squads, this is going to be the makeup of who looks after this delivery, and the feature sets. So we accept that that's the split. In terms of autonomy, they don't have to track the time. They're not tracking budget, but what they do track against is a list of delivery strategy OKRs set for their feature sets. They're made up of commercial. So if it's a growth squad, it might be percent of new customers. It might be percent through X part of the funnel. If they're an experience squad, it could be contact to complaint ratio. It could be all of those stuff, as well as other OKRs and KPIs that are linked to tech debt, that are linked to technical platform upgrades, so React 17 to 19. And that's the measure that we think is important rather than the monetary value of their delivery. So they deliver X feature, it might be a tech debt feature or a technical upgrade. It could be a feature that delivers FTE savings. It could be a feature that delivers a revenue generating feature. And that's what we track them against throughout the year. And we do that on a half yearly basis. And they present to the exec board for each of, or we present each of the delivery areas across the 19 squads that we've got, what they've delivered value added to the business, and that's what they're judged against rather than the physical monetary cost.
So I've seen this done in different ways, and I think so at Persimmon everything is new, so the budget is handled at a kind of at the director level, and then kind of he will split that out between, because he's got various product areas. So I look after customer product. We've got business products where we've got apps that are for business users. And so he will kind of dish that out, and we will go and ask for funding if there's something that we want. And as long as it's within budget, generally it's fine. Previously at Pets, looking after mobile app at product owner level, we were given kind of free reign over the budget. So you were given a budget for that product for the year, and you manage that budget yourself. And then where there was any additional things that you wanted that were outside of that, it'd be the case of creating a business case and going and justifying it and getting the funding for it that way. And for me personally, I think that's a better way to empower people in product. I think that's a big issue across loads of businesses, is making sure that the people in product are empowered to deliver, because I think if they don't have that autonomy in that role, it becomes a lot of red tape and really difficult to deliver against OKRs. Pets did use OKRs, and I found them really useful. And that is something I'm trying to make sure that we get implemented at Persimmon as well.
I think similar. So we're not there yet. So everything's a bit is centrally managed, and people don't really know much about budgets. They've just got the technology to use, the people to do it, and if we need more funding, we can put business case on and we deliver against that business case. What we are doing, though, have you heard of Aptio and technology business management? Some tools that we are now using to be able to understand the cost base and how the cost base is made up. So whether it's your cloud costs, your API costs, your platform costs, people costs, and being able to kind of visualize all of that and then group that into portfolios, into our platforms and into projects, right? And then the platform product owner will have full visibility, the team will have full visibility of the cost of their platform and what it costs to serve. That can then help with, in terms of the outcomes that we deliver, to say, are we getting the right value from the platform that we've got? And at some point, we might need to turn platforms off and replace them or whatever, depending on whether we're getting the right return on investment on that. And so what we want to create is a total cost of ownership that sits then with the platform owners and the product owners. And then there's the change budget, which we can, now there's a level of change that we can do just as part of, you know, the platform team. But if we want to burst that and do something like a special project or whatever else it is, then the platform owners or product owners or even a project manager could then request additional funding, right? And then we can go secure burst capacity. Burst capacity is just another thing where we do have partners and stuff like that. So nearly all of our work is delivered into in-house. We've got our own teams. They're all in Skipton and they all kind of build and run their own platforms. We've used partners in the past where we've had to secure money and then they've built it and then they've handed it over to us. Bad idea. I'm rebuilding one of the platforms from the ground up because it's a bit of a mess. And so and then for our app and portal, we've had a hybrid team between us and the partner to get skills and capabilities where we've not had them, and we're transitioning that over. So we're trying to work out how do we then secure additional money where actually we want to spend the money rather on backfill. So put our best people on the best jobs. So I'm trying to get out of the mindset that says we have to go get a third party for burst capacity who work inside a platform team, but they do all the exciting work whilst we're running the platform and doing change and all of the usual stuff. We're trying to flip that. So we're bringing in burst capacity to run the platform whilst we do something significant, whilst trying to maintain the trust and the harmony and we talked about trust earlier on, and the relationships that you want to build inside those platform teams that lead to high trust, that lead to high performance. So a number of balancing acts to do whilst we're in the phase we're in right now.
Just a quick follow-up on what you were saying. If I read this right, from at least your team perspective, from a wider delivery function, if you will, you've managed to make that step from being a cost center to a value center, not all of them revenue centers, but value centers, and that's within the culture of the delivery team. Has that broken through in the same way to the exec yet? Are the team seen as in that way, or is there still an underlying sort of cost center element to it?
I'd like to say it had broken through, but recently we made a request for more resource and it was put on hold, for want of a better word. But I think it's taken a lot of demonstration over the past 12 to 24 months of really demonstrating what they get from each of the delivery teams. And actually, this is probably the 4th or 5th iteration. It's a constant, reassessment every 6 months of does the structure that we work, that we're, as we are morphing from 3 squads up to the current status and moving from platform to web mobile led squads to feature based squads, demonstrating and the morphing of we've morphed the structure several times as we've got to where we are today. And we've now got in place where we're demonstrating on a regular basis to the exec board of what we're delivering, the value we're adding to the business and to customers, and where that's come from. So the trust is built up is probably my key thing over a period of time. We still have the same as Skipton, where we have a change portfolio and a central budget for bigger projects, but there is a lot of autonomy on the ground within product for the delivery squads as a whole to really define the direction. We're still going through a transformation project for a legacy platform. we're about to get off it in September, hopefully, but we have been on the journey to move away from our old web broker platform to move to React for probably 5 years. And back to your first question originally, we balanced product-led and vision initiatives with that project-led by not driving it at the speed probably which we could have. There was pros and cons to that. It meant that our teams could deliver other customer value in areas that were greater to the business, but actually it's meant things have gone on for much longer than they should have done. Yeah, I think the board or the exec understand what we deliver. To some level, I think it's still money, and this is showing you this. They maybe don't understand some of the technical underpinning, not understand, but don't appreciate the importance of some of the technical underpinnings. So there's a balancing act of the right features and the right delivery to show that.
Super, thank you very much. Anybody else got a question? So, there you go.
This is more just your opinion, I guess, and rather than an answer. But how important do you think is the organisational culture and environment set by the leadership team for product ways of working to truly be a success? And also, I guess on the flip side, what are the red flags that you've seen in your experience where people have tried to work in a product way, but actually it's just not going to work based on the environment?
Walk slowly because no one's putting their hand out. I'll give you some thinking time.
I feel like I'm keep grabbing for the mic. I think it's hugely important. The culture in any business, and it's not just in the product team, it's the culture of that organisation is really important to driving success within all of the teams that sit in that business. But specifically within delivery and the delivery sphere, we went through a position where we grew very fast, as I've said several times, and scaled at pace. And we made some mistakes where we separated out the delivery pillars and then moved them back together, which meant that the people leading those might not have had completely aligned views, which then diverged the different teams, which meant that the collaboration of the individual team members from across the disciplines wasn't probably as strong as it should have been. I think COVID and the working from home culture, which I know is a touchy subject for a lot of the people that work within our teams, that didn't help with some of it. And our business at II instigated a 3 days back in the office working policy. That really helped bring people back together. It did what it was meant to do, whilst also annoying a lot of the team members. As I said, we've moved our delivery teams into a separate office where it's just the delivery function for a period of time. Just in the last month while we've moved and people are able to stand up, we've seen, without enforcing within the teams, people sitting next to the people that work within their delivery squads, talking, standing around desks, lifting the raised desk, just talking about a problem, chewing the fat, for want of a better word. And that's just within a month of being in the same building. Yet we were on the same floor in this building. And that didn't happen because we were with other teams. Not sure why that transformation or why that's happened, but I think it is really set by having a combined leadership team, and that doesn't necessarily have to be at the exec level. That can be across the head of departments or directors of those departments or senior managers within the department, and having one clear message. We implemented a delivery strategy document for our delivery teams, which really clearly set out what each of the squads and the teams were responsible for delivering and how they could get to that and what their targets were. That helped drive the message to the teams to be working kind of in one direction.
Yeah, so I think for me, where it is absolutely crucial that the message is coming from the top down. I've seen it work really, really well and it implemented really well at Pets at Home. That came from the top down. It came from the CEO, CTO, and digital had been separated out from IT and from marketing. So it was literally a product/digital function. And so all we focused on then was doing the kind of product delivery with all the functions underneath that. And the buy-in that we had and the autonomy we were given allowed us to really drive that home. I have been in other organisations where the maturity level isn't there, and that throws up different challenges. And I think the flags there are, actually being able to get across, when you're going into business as a product hire and you're one of the first, you will come across a lot of people, especially at a senior level, that don't understand what your role is, and they are used to doing things in a certain way, and they don't want that change because actually that might impact how they do things. And so for me, that is a kind of a real big, it's not just about change of stuff that's happening on the platform or from a product perspective, but it's a full business change and making sure that everybody is coming along on that journey. And I think when you are one of the first, that's where your stakeholder management really comes in, and being able to win them over and get them, on board.
I think that's the hardest question. Does he get a T-shirt or something?
I think that's many of the II branded freebies.
Never seen these before. So this isn't constrained to product thinking, right? In most organizations, management thinking is no longer relevant for the world we live in. Highly complex, highly uncertain,
non-deterministic. What we do tomorrow, what Trump does tomorrow. We don't know. We don't know. And what we think is value today might not be value in 3 months' time, 6 months' time. Came out of AWS Summit last week. I've only been gone a year, and the world has changed again at a rate that I couldn't even imagine. And where does management thinking come from in most of our organizations? It comes from 1917 with Frederick Wilmslow Taylor and scientific management, and moving complicated work through a life cycle of specialist siloed work, which is repeatable, deterministic, and knowable. And therefore, you could say, how long should it take to put a wheel on a car? 30 seconds. If it takes more than 30 seconds, that's a deviation. The first Gantt chart came through deterministic work through that kind of process of building a car manufacturing, Ford, Model T, all of that sort of stuff. And you could then determine the productivity of a worker, whether they did X number of things per minute, per day, per whatever, and they'd get recognized and rewarded that way. So our whole incentivization mechanism that we use today by management and management thinking is also rewarding an old style philosophy and way of working. And what's happened with, the democratization of knowledge, where there's no longer managers and workers. Managers know stuff, workers don't. We all know stuff. Communications is now fully available, whereas back in the day, the people who could communicate were the people at the top who had access. The first factories that were built, one of them had people in there with 50 different languages all working on this car factory because they didn't need to communicate with each other. They just had to do what they're told. We've got a lot of that management thinking still in place today. And unfortunately, some of the leaders that are leading organizations became successful because of project thinking, because of being able to command and control, what people did. And it made them successful. But in the world that we're living in, at the rate of change and the ability to embrace uncertainty, ambiguity, and all of that kind of stuff requires a culture of curiosity, psychological safety. And it doesn't matter what industry that is in now. And we have to, I keep using this word because I heard it a lot yesterday. We have to give agency to the people closest to the work. So the manager, the exco, the board know the least. They might be able to see the big picture and the horizon of where we might want to go. But even if anybody says to me now, I know what we're going to be doing in what are we now, 26? I know what we're going to do in 2030, 2040, 2050. They're lying. There's no way that's knowable. So the only thing, and Uncle Jeff Bezos,
sorry, you used to call him Uncle Jeff, he said that the only real competitive advantage an organization has is agility. And that agility comes from the organization's culture. So Amazon's culture is determined through 16 leadership principles that, having been in there, you
join the cult. Did I say that? That's not recorded. Sorry, Jeff. You get, you become part of the organizational culture. The first 3 months when you join Amazon, you do no work, no customer-facing work. Learn the organizational culture before you start adding value. That's the most important thing. And you know, we still do this. We bring an engineer in, and we bring people in, and in a couple of days they start working. I want to change. I want to start bringing boot camps in. I want to get people into the culture that we are more purposefully into the culture we want, so that we can they can operate with the right behaviors. We talked about behaviors earlier on, didn't we? One of the things we're doing at Skipton, because we recognize we're not there yet and don't have that, is we're launching a company-wide program to enabling curiosity, creating that voice, to people to ask why, to think about things differently, and to enable, whether you're on the contact center, in a branch, you're an underwriter, you're part of treasury, or you're in software engineering, you have that curiosity, and that curiosity will deliver a better outcome against uncertainty and the emergence and unfolding of the world and life and business and stuff like that, so we can pivot. We just came, you know, ISA season's really big for us, probably, right? ISA's mature. You know, we then have to set new rates for new ISAs and try and lock some of that in. And the market volatility at the moment is absolutely flipping insane. So trying to pitch what those products are, we were making in-day decisions about products because we can adapt. And our CEO of Money just said, look, you know, a year ago we couldn't have done that. We could not have, you know, accommodated this level of market flexibility in the way that we've done. So the only competitive advantage that we've got is agility. And that agility is only going to get supercharged, I'm going to use the word again, with AI. Right? Mythos, you know, the new AI model, huge risk to all organizations because it can identify your vulnerabilities and attack them without human interaction, right? Now, for every organization, what's going to be more and more important? Not that these things are going to be stopped. There's going to be more and more of these things that might be able to attack your organization. That's why resilience and security is so important, because it's your license to operate. It's not that these things won't emerge, but when they emerge, how fast can we respond? How fast can we protect our perimeter? If a new vulnerability is found, how quickly can we patch? And can we auto patch? Can we use AI back, you know, to say, actually, we've just seen this thing come out, it's doing this thing somewhere else. We've now pre-securified, whatever the word is, our estate. You know, so that organizational agility, and we talked about risk before. I'm trying to change that word a little bit. Risk is really important. I don't want to replace the intent of the word risk, but I'm trying to get people to look round corners. And it's great because people are trying to guess what I'm about to do next, which is fascinating. But looking around corners, I think, is an art that we all need to have that says what might happen and why might it happen and why wouldn't we then do something about it, even if it's throwaway. And at the moment, throwaway, particularly in the traditional mindset, the big projects, whatever, why might we do something results in a 3-month project costing 100K, which may or may not work. Tomorrow, it'll cost no more money and be delivered in a day. And we've just got to get that. That's the culture we need to create. Does that make sense? That was a part answer.
That was the short version, was it?
Do you know John Smart? There's a book called Better Value, Sooner, Safer, Happier by John Smart. Most of the history, the patterns, the anti-patterns, the system of work, the management thinking, and what needs to change and adapt, that's mostly in his book. Another book by a friend of mine called Yana, The Octopus Organization. Again, similar sort of things about patterns, anti-patterns, and how they all correlate and iterate. They took thousands of data points and turned up with 32 kind of patterns and anti-patterns, and all defined by culture in some way, shape, or form. And John Smart is actually now working with us to lead that culture of curiosity movement in Skipton.
Super. Thank you. Before I was in the role I'm in now, I did 7 years at a sort of a mid-sized consultancy and worked with loads of different organisations through to really, really large. I'm not NDA'd anymore, so I can name names, but up to really, really large ones and loads of different levels of maturity. And one of the biggest red flags for me, and in my new role, I'm not saying I'm going to go onto the dark web and order a Hitman as soon as I hear it, but it's up there, is this is all working really well. Let's try safe. That's one of my biggest red flags. Cool. I think we've got time for one more question. Has anybody got a bit? Oh, there we go. Super.
No, it's not a question.
Oh.
Could you repeat the name of that book, please? The Better Value one.
Better value, sooner, safer, happier.
Sooner safer.
Sooner, safer.
Thank you.
We've got an affiliate link for Amazon. We should do. One more question. Anybody got a burning question? Oh, yeah, Subir.
Hi, I'd like to know how you do your resourcing and what looks good to you for that, if that makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, how do you do your resource planning? What tools? Do you think it works well for you?
So I'm guessing this is in the scenario where you don't have a feature team constantly working on a feature.
I'll go from a product perspective, and I'm sure kicking from an engineering perspective in his organisation.
Don't say example.
No, I'm not going to. So we use, if you're talking features and planning what we're going to deliver in a roadmap, we do that on a quarterly basis, but the quarter before, so it's 3 months in advance for the next period, and then we lock it in as you get closer. So prior to the quarter, we use a RoadMonk tool. There's loads of different tools out there. We've tried a couple of them. We centered on RoadMonk because we needed a new tool in the business. It worked really well. It's got integration into Jira and Confluence for us, and we can prescribe that. We've also pushed it across the business, so our commercial teams use it for their roadmaps. The project teams are starting to use it for their roadmaps. Back-end ops use it for theirs, so we can have a combined view. And it also allows different views from the formats that you input, so you can input that against squads, value streams, value to the customer, monetary value, so it can bring up a different layout. It makes it clear for different audiences to understand what we're delivering and what the value is to them for each of those features or delivery opportunities. In terms of doing the planning and deciding what goes onto those roadmaps, there's obviously quarterly PI planning and conversations with key stakeholders and locking in what's going into the roadmap. Every quarter we do look out to the 12-month point, but obviously as you get further out, it's you know it's never going to look like that anyway. And so we use a now for the next 3 months, next for the 3 months after, and then a kind of later column for everything 6 to 12 months. And we try not to put timeframes on it. We know that the business love timeframes and they want to know when such and such getting delivered, when am I going to get that? But we try to steer away from that and have that now, next, later. And the rest of the business has started to adopt that approach as well. It doesn't always work. We are a regulated company. We do have some items that are time bound, and then we have to look to accommodate that, whether that's planning in a waterfall methodology or we know we're not going to achieve this time frame, we need to move resource to support delivery there. Does that kind of answer your question? Is that what you were asking or not?
I'm just interested in what tools. We're a bit immature at the minute, like I do it on a spreadsheet, but we are going to a tool. So I'm just interested to what you guys do.
My advice, we had 5 or 6, and I was a senior product manager here then, we had 5 or 6 different conversations with different tool providers, and we knew we had a set of must-have criteria. We knew we wanted integration into Confluence and Jira. We had a number of other, because that's the platforms we use for our engineering delivery. We knew we had a number of other criteria that were must-haves. And we had some even better ifs and likes in there. And we had demos with a lot of different companies that provide that different tooling. And that was the one we got the feel for, and that had the requirements that the features that met our requirements.
Do you have a PMO team that manage that? Do you do it with your schools?
So we did manage it with one of the product managers, the licenses, all of that stuff. We just moved to a commercial license with them. So now it's managed centrally by the PMO team, but it's still underneath the product P&L. We take payment for it.
One question, make sure you do PI planning. Is that for all your capacity across all your teams, or is it for a subset?
So it's not in the same PI planning as the banks do. and I'm generalizing here from HSBC and M&S Bank days where everything's locked in. This is all you're going to do. Our PI planning, it's across all of the front-facing squads and the sales force. Non-forward customer facing, but the customer is obviously the internal customer. All of those squads will do quarterly planning that is supposed to be locked in. This is what we're going to deliver during this quarter. Actually, in being real, it's not. There is always items that are fast, need to be fast tracked and all of that stuff in there. But yeah, it's across all of the. It's done by the product managers. They're responsible for 2 or 3 squads each. Their sphere. They will do it with their stakeholders, implement, verify the roadmap. That then goes to a wider planning session across all of the delivery department heads. That then gets signed off by exec.
Thank you. I don't think we've got enough time for me to answer this question. We use it part of the technology business management. We've got a set of tools that's it, where we record sourcing and stuff like that. Bigger concept. We talked a lot about resourcing. I hate that word. We are moving away from it. We're now calling them people.
Interchangeable components that can do stuff.
Because people take time to know, to learn, to understand, to get them. So we did spend a lot of time, maybe more before I kind of joined really, and transitioning as I'm now in, from moving people to work to moving the work to the people. So persistent squads with persistent capacity, so that the work comes through the people rather than the people through the work, which is back to the old factory where the work used to go through different people and the silos to get done. We're now changing the focus of that. We do the PI planning. We do it across all of the platforms, all of the products, and we're moving from trying to be deterministic about what we'll actually do across the whole of that PIM, locking in and managing loads of dependencies to determine whether directionally we're heading in the right direction, right, across all of those different groups. And we're identifying and eliminating the dependencies. So we're moving towards that. So there's a bit of a reframing of what PI planning is becoming. And we do this, we've got this floor that can take like 800 people, 800 pieces, more like 600 people, all on one floor doing PI planning together is just impressive, right? Particularly now as we're into PI 10 is about to start. There's a maturity curve that we've gone on. So that some of that thing that used to be like nth level of planning and what we're going to do in sprint 8.1, 8.2, 8.3, 8.4, now becoming what outcomes are we looking to achieve? What are the key things where we need to make sure we're joined up and aligned? And at what point do I need you to deliver something to me? And identifying those and then saying, right, we'll deliver that to you, but we're also going to add a new feature in to make it self-service for next time. So the elimination of dependencies as well as the so things like APIs that all went to the API team. And then what we did was we then distributed API people into all of the product teams, and then they all wanted API engineers. And now what we're doing is we're pulling them all back and then almost loaning them out as a service to teach engineers how to build and run APIs, and then bringing them back in again and democratizing API build. So we're doing the same with quality engineering. We're doing the same with even our core banking platform, where we're teaching other engineers, React engineers, how to change our Jade platform. Oh, by the way, if you want to move off mainframe, we own a company called Jade, and Jade does a jetting service that migrates from mainframe to Jade. That's why we've got some technical debt in there, because we've still got some jetted code. Same.
At the moment, you've got to fight Anthropic for some of that cake, I'm afraid, if you believe what their marketing material says. Super, right. We will end there. I think, John, I'm assuming there were no questions, otherwise you would have whacked your hand up. Happy days. So let's make sure we finish on time. So a couple of thank yous. Thank you to our panel, to Louis, Laura and Raj. Thank you to II for letting us have the room. Much appreciated. Thank you to, we'll just keep it rolling. Thank you to John and to Sam and the guys at 4IT for putting this all together. Thank you very much for coming and have a safe trip home.